about the problem that you wish to address.
Oh, okay. Well, I have this fear of being buried alive in a box. I start thinking about being buried alive and I begin to panic.
Has anyone ever tried to bury you alive in a box?
No, but truly thinking about it does make my life horrible. I mean, I can't go through tunnels or be in an elevator or in a house, anything boxy.
So what you're saying is you're claustrophobic.
Yes, that's it.
All right, well, let's go, Catherine. I'm going to say two words to you right now. I want you to listen to them very, very carefully. Then I want you to take them out of the office with you and incorporate them into your life.
Well, shall I write them down?
Well, if it makes you comfortable, it's just two words. We find most people can remember them.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, here they are.
Stop it!
I'm sorry?
Stop it!
Stop it?
Yes, S-T-O-P, new word, I-T.
So, what are you saying?
You know, it's funny. I say two simple words, and I cannot tell you the amount of people who say exactly the same thing you're saying. I mean, this is not Yiddish, Catherine. This is English.
Stop it.
So, I should just stop it.
There you go. I mean, you don't want to go through life being scared of being buried alive in a box, do you? I mean, that sounds frightening.
It is.
Then stop it.
I can't. I mean, it's been with me.
That video was sent to me by one of my professors as I was pursuing my master's in pastoral counseling, and I thought it was very funny, very fitting. Now, this is wireless, so it's not me moving around like it used to be. Remember where I was doing stuff and the wires were getting in the way? So this is just, it's my shirt. See? See, it's my shirt. It's so bright. Everybody said we love that bright shirt. All right, we're going to keep on going. The object behind the video was very simple. The counselor was saying, I can solve your problems in 5 minutes. And I charge $5 for those 5 minutes, and that's it. And I don't go longer than 5 minutes, and I don't make change, and I don't take checks, and it's cash only. And she agreed to all those things. They said, okay, go. And so she started to tell her problems. Now, the video actually goes on, I think, 4 or 5 minutes. Many more things pop up that she shares, multiple issues that she's dealing with, and of course, the same reply is, stop it. And so, it's funny, but there's a great message in that for us as well this morning. You know? Stop it! Charlie, stop it! They're yelling. I'm not even moving. Maybe if I hold my breath. That'd be bad. I'll be right in the shirt. There's a message in that, though. Stop it. Now, honestly, if we went around the entire room this morning, and we were to have, if you guys were seriously, if you were humble enough to do this, okay, I'm not going to force you, but if you were humble enough to stand up and just mention one area in your life, just one area of sin that you really struggle with, we could all go around the room and collectively say, stop it, right? But I imagine as we go along, someone over here might not be able to connect with someone over here. There's something different. You're going through something different than I'm going through. And so we wouldn't be able to completely be on the same page. But when we think about worry and anxiety, I think for the most part, we can all understand it. We can all come together on the same page because, let's face it, you either have worried and had anxiety in your life at one point, or you are now currently worrying about something or experiencing anxiety, or you will be very soon, most likely worrying about something or being anxious about something. And so the message this morning is very fitting. Stop it. It's really simple because Jesus even makes it clear that worrying isn't anything that's beneficial for us. Matthew 6:25, Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothes?" Jesus makes it clear. He says, look, don't worry. Don't worry about what you're going to eat or drink. If you have enough to eat, if you have enough to drink, don't worry about clothes. If you have enough clothes to wear or what clothes to wear. He says, don't worry about those things. Stop it. And we see it in the Old Testament as well. Psalm 55:22, the psalmist says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." And Psalm 62:8 says, "Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge." And we know Paul makes it clear, do not be anxious in anything. And Peter says, cast all your anxieties on him, that is on Jesus. So it's clear over and over and over again, stop it. Easier said than done, right? Because we're not supposed to worry, but we do. We worry about stuff. We're anxious about stuff. We're not supposed to be, but we are. Why is that? Well, we can give many reasons. You know, you don't have a job. You don't have very much money. Maybe your finances are really bad. Maybe you're in debt really, really deep. Maybe your health is bad. Maybe you're going through a divorce. Maybe your family's falling apart. There are many reasons why we can say we are worrying or we are experiencing anxiety. But even in the midst of those, the Bible tells us, don't worry. Well, I don't know about you, but that doesn't make me feel just all totally better, you know? Simply knowing that I'm not supposed to worry doesn't make me not worry. Am I right? Anybody? Show of hands. Can you relate to what I'm saying? Just by not worrying doesn't mean my problems just pack up and go away, right? They don't disappear. That's not how it works. They're still there. Whether I worry about them or not, they're still right there with me. So again, why worry? Why do we worry? I think we worry because we don't have control over a particular situation. Think about it. We don't have the money. We don't have the time, we don't have the ability, we don't have the resources, whatever it is, we ain't got it. And so because of that, we worry and we stress. And so I think the number one reason why we worry is very simply because we worry because there's a situation we can't control. That's the first thing I want you to get out of the message this morning. There's something we can't control. And because of it, we worry, we stress, we agonize over it. And yet Jesus says, stop it. It doesn't do any good. It doesn't help us. In fact, it hurts us, if anything. You know, Corrie ten Boom said this, "Worry doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength." There's a whole lot of sense to that statement. If you spend your time worrying about tomorrow, you're missing out on today. And you're missing out on tomorrow. Now, how many of you, honestly, this is what I used to do. And I still struggle with this, so I try to work on it very, very, very diligently. But how many of you can just take a situation, just run it through your head, just by a show of hands? It's okay, just to be honest, because you're with me. It doesn't even happen. You just take a scenario, you run it through your head, and you play it out like it's a movie scene, and it all pans out, and you're getting all anxious, you're getting all excited, maybe you're getting angry, maybe there's fear, there's all these emotions getting mixed in there, and it's something that never happened. In fact, you're the one who controls that conversation with a person that you're imagining, and it never happens. And what do? You spend all your time worrying about that, anxious about it. It never takes place. It's just a waste of time. You just totally wasted your entire day. You took all the joy out of today, and it's completely gone. But worrying does more than just that. Worrying hurts us physically. Dr. Alvarez, who's a stomach specialist at the Mayo Clinic, said this. He says 80% of the stomach disorders that come to us are not organic. Most of our ills are caused by worry and fear. Dr. Charles Mayo himself said this, worry affects the circulation, The heart, the glands, the whole nervous system. I have never known a man who died from overwork, but many who have died from doubt. Then another doctor, Dr. Alex Carroll, said this: people who don't know how to fight worry die young. It hurts us. It hurts us in so many ways. So stop it. It's quite simple, isn't it? Jesus makes it clear, Matthew 6:34. He said, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. I think we can attest to that, right? I mean, remember, we talked like weeks ago, and I said that there are a lot of Christians who think that God, they think God promises ice cream and lollipops. It doesn't happen. As Christians, as followers of Christ, our lives aren't necessarily easier than the rest of the world. Sometimes, in fact, our lives are much harder than those in the world, because we're taking a stand on many, many different levels, and so our life becomes harder. We experience that persecution that the Bible tells us that we're going to have. Yeah. It's harder. Not easy. You agree? Yes? No? You guys are quiet too. Yeah. I think we could agree that each day has its own trouble. Yes. Even if it's a great day. Maybe it's a birthday, or it's an anniversary, or it's a graduation, there's some sort of celebration, there's always something that seems to be there, just a little tiny bit, nagging at us, that little bit of that day that just seems to be bringing the troubles. Those are easy times to say, stop it, aren't they? We want to say, stop it to the troubles. So look, we spend our time worrying, we spend our time being anxious. Number one, quite simply, we worry because there's a situation that we can't control. But second, we worry because we spend time supposing. Let me tell you what I mean. There was a young Christian girl who was not very wealthy. In fact, she was quite poor, but she was always happy. Always happy, always positive, bubbly, energetic. This is the kind of person you wanted to spend your time around. She was really, really wonderful. Never heard a negative comment come from this woman's mouth, ever. But there was an older Christian woman who decided she was going to set her straight. And she said, listen, young lady, I want you to understand that happy-go-lucky attitude you have right now is just good for now. But things are going to change. The world is a harsh place. You're not going to be like this forever. Suppose you get sick. You can't go to work. You can't pay your bills. Suppose your boss decides that he's all done and closes up shop and you don't have a job at all. Suppose, and she goes on and the woman says, no, stop. You know, the young lady says, no, seriously, stop it. She says, I don't suppose anything. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I trust in him completely. And you're so miserable because you suppose everything. Think about that. What she's saying is, I'm trusting God 100%, and so I don't worry about things in my life. You know, I hate to say it. I really hate to say it. But worry it's a faith issue. It is. Worry is a faith issue. Now, I hate to say it because I've had issues with worry and anxiety in my life. I've had lots of problems with travel anxiety specifically. And so there are many, many things I'm trying to overcome in the worry and anxiety area. My mom is a worry wart. Ever heard that phrase? Yep, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So I can tell you, I struggle with it. Like I've always said, I'm not up here because I've got everything figured out. I'm not up here preaching from God's Word because I'm so much better than all of you. I'm the same. I have struggles. I have things I deal with. I've just answered a calling in my life that's different than yours. That's it. Okay? So I struggle with that sometimes. Now, not as much since I moved here. I tell you what, God stretched me a great deal moving me here. Just put me on an airplane repeatedly was enough. Shannon will attest to that. You know, sitting in the plane, I'm like, you know, and I'm holding on like this. We're still parked, you know. We're still boarding, you know. And I'm like, oh, I got earbuds in my ears. 10th Avenue North is one of my favorite bands. I put them in, and I just crank up my iPod, put it in my pocket. And again, I'm like this. You know, they're turning the plane on now. You know, it's getting there. And so I'll tell you what, God stretched me a whole lot. Because worry and anxiety, it's a faith issue. It really is. You know, worry is when we put more faith in our problems than in God's promises. You know? Worry is when we put more faith in our problems than God's promises. So how do we get around it? Because we're not supposed to worry, right? Stop it. Well, we need to focus on something else. You know how Paul says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind? That's what we need to do. We need to think about other things that will take us out of those moments of worry, out of those moments of anxiety. Any of you guys, you ever met somebody, this is terrible, no elbows and nudging, and don't name names, but although you're free to do that if you want to, I guess. But you ever met anybody, just by show of hands, somebody that just, they say something negative no matter what? You know, you look great today. Oh yeah, but I'm sick. I mean, there's something, there's just always that something. There's like, you're like, I love you so much. Yeah, well, and then there's just something there. Yeah. They're frustrated, right? Frustrating to deal with people like that. I have some in my family. It's very difficult. It reminds me of the two farmers. There's a young farmer and an old farmer. And their property line, they were neighbors, and they were separated just by a fence. And often they would stand out there at the fence and they would talk with one another. And this young farmer tried so hard to get this older guy on his side, just to build a friendship. But it was so negative, it was almost impossible. And so it didn't matter what the young man would say. The older gentleman would always have something negative. You know, the young man would say, wow, it is so beautiful today. I'm just amazed. The weather is absolutely amazing. It's not 115 any longer today. It's only 92. Right? You guys know what I'm saying about that. Yeah. And the old man would say, well, yeah, but you know, it's going to rain all next week. You know, there's just that negative comment. You know, or you can say, wow, look, we had an abundance of crops this year. God has really blessed both of us. This is really, really wonderful. And they say, yeah, but you know what? We're supposed to have a drought. You know, I mean, there's just something. Right? There's always something he has to say just to bring it down. And this young guy, you know, he knows that this farmer loves to go pheasant hunting, right? And so he's trying so hard to build this relationship, this friendship with him, and he invites him repeatedly to go with him on a Saturday morning. Finally, he agrees. And so the two men, they go out, and this young guy, he's got this amazing dog. He wants to show off his dog. Dog is so good, you know, he can track anything and everything. Just like the greatest dog on the planet, right? Well, except for Droopy, right? Some of you guys know. Droopy's my Saint Bernard. Okay. Not nearly as energetic as the dog we're talking about today. And so they go out in the woods, and he's tracking, he's sniffing all around, and he's running up and he's barking and everything. And they're, well, you got scent boy, and they're following along. And they get to a certain spot, and this young farmer sees a pheasant, and he aims his gun up there, and he shoots it, and it falls from the sky. That's all they know. And so they start running in that direction. Well, the old man maybe not so much. Maybe they were kind of like, you know, walking quickly in that direction. But the dog is just, you know, trucking. They get to this water's edge is where they come out of the woods. And they're at the water's edge, and they look out, and, you know, about, boy, you know, 60 feet out, there's this pheasant laying there on the water. And so the young man, he looks at his dog, he's like, go get him, buddy. The dog takes off, and he starts running, and he runs on top of the water. The surface of the water. Grabs the pheasant, runs on the surface of the water back, drops the bird at his master's feet, sits, looks up at him. Right now, you got to picture this is the old man, right? The old man is looking at the dog. He looks at the young man again. He looks at the dog. He looks at the young man. He says, shit, your dog can't swim, can he? So always that negative to you know, cover over that silver lining. It's always there. And so we've got to have our focus somewhere else. We've got to take, mentally, we've got to be thinking upon other things. You know, I've shared with some of you, I have a book in my office. I love this book. It's called Telling Yourself the Truth. And it's a great. I mean, I'm serious. I am sold out that every Christian everywhere needs to read this book. Seriously, and if you want to, it's in there. We can start checking it out by person, by family, whatever. Everyone, I believe, needs to read it. Because it paints a very clear picture of what's going on, because we are in a spiritual battle. And Satan can put thoughts in our heads. Now, he can't read our minds, but he can put thoughts in our heads. And he does it constantly. And if we start to act upon this, well, yeah, I'm just a big dummy. Oh, I'm worthless. Oh, I'm stupid. I mean, we say those things, right? I mean, even in innocent times, we'll do something and say, geez, Ray, you big dummy, why'd you do that? I mean, we're just guilty of that. Well, he puts those thoughts in, we start to live, we start to think of those thoughts over and over again. We start to say them, and then we start to believe them, and then we start to become those thoughts. And so we've got to be very careful with taking control, right? Paul says, take captive every thought and make it obedient to the will of Christ. And so that's what we've got to do. We've got to be in that mindset, literally, to take captive those thoughts. And Jesus makes it very clear about the things that we think about and how that affects us. Matthew 6:22, Jesus says, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Wow. And that's it right there. He's saying, here's the deal. If I'm walking around and I'm thinking about worrying, worrying about this, and I'm anxious about this, and I'm thinking about things that are causing me stress, causing me fear, my eyes are going to grow dark. And then everything inside of me is going to be dark. And I'm not going to be able to see clearly anything else around me. It's the same as that farmer. You're going to see things, but when you see them, it's going to be through the same lenses that you've always been using, and it's going to be negative. And so we've got to take our minds, and we have to transform our thoughts. And so Jesus says, you do that by thinking of things other than what your problems are. Matthew 6:26. Jesus says, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add single power to your life? That's pretty clear. And then Paul says in Philippians 4, verse 6, he says, rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again. Rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And then Paul goes on to say in Philippians 4, 8 and 9, now this is what we're supposed to be thinking about, guys. He says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you've learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into practice, and the peace of God will be with you. Wow, whatever is true and noble and pure and right, excellent and praiseworthy, those are awesome things to think about. Now here's the kicker. Because remember last week I threw it out there and I said, you're going to follow yes or no. And it needs to be yes or a no. There was no gray area, there's no wiggle room, you had to make that decision. And so today, it's kind of the same thing. This is what we're supposed to be thinking about. These things are what we're supposed to be thinking about. And here's the deal, if you're not being obedient to God. Do you ever think about that? Do you ever think about the thoughts that we entertain? The negative thoughts that we entertain. And yet it's right here, it's really clear. We're not supposed to be thinking about those kinds of things. Whatever's pure, excellent, noble, praiseworthy. Those are the things that we're supposed to be thinking about. And when we're not being obedient to God. So think about those things. And if you're not, well, stop it. And don't worry. Because remember, worrying is when we place more, okay? Make sure you get it. Worrying is when we place more faith in our problems than we do in God's promises. we're not going to make it. So don't worry. Just stop it. Easier said than done. Right? You know, there was a young man who lost his job. And he wasn't a very religious man. But he went to go see the local preacher. And the old preacher sat in his office and he listened to this man. He stood in his doorway and he stood there and he just unloaded why he was so angry that he lost his job, why he was so frustrated with everything that was going on, just all this worry and anxiety that was just pouring out from him. And that old preacher sat there and he answered him. But he couldn't, the young man couldn't hear him. He said, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, preacher. And so he steps forward a little bit. And he whispers something again. And the man said, I still can't hear you. And so he comes forward.